Hello, this is Gus Bedwell, Training and Development Specialist for Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs. Now that you've completed Module 1, Veterans 101, let's move to Module 2, VA Benefits. During this module, we're going to actually discuss the following types of benefits: service connection, non-service connection, VA healthcare, and then the survivor's benefits. One thing you have to understand is that service-connected disability is a monthly payment made by the VA to a veteran for a disability caused by or made worse by personal injury or disease while in service. However, though, before the veteran can receive this, their disease or injury must be determined service-connected. There are 5 ways to get a service-connected disability. Direct service connection. So take, for example, you hurt yourself while in the service. There has to be a diagnosis of that condition in the service and after you leave the service, and it has to be chronic in nature. It could be something as simple as you hurt your back in the military and you went to sick call, or you were on profile when you're in the military and now you're having problems with that. Or it could be even something where maybe there wasn't any documented proof because you couldn't go to sick call, but somebody can write a statement saying that they witnessed you hurting your back, and they witnessed how it affected you after you hurt your back. And now you have medical doctors that are saying, yes, you have a problem with it, and there is a nexus or a connection between your problem you currently have and your military service. The next one is secondary. This means that any condition that was caused by a service-connected condition can be considered service-connected as its own standalone disability. So I give an example. We have a lot of veterans who have diabetes as an example, and then they will develop, say, neuropathy, or they will develop diabetic eye issues where they can't see because they have diabetes in their eyes. Those are conditions that would be considered secondary. There has to be a medical documentation or link between the direct service-connected issue and the secondary service-connected issue, and then the veteran can get that service-connected. The third way is aggravated. This means that you went into the military with an injury, but because of your military service, it got worse, and it got worse to the point past natural progression. So here's an example. You're a football player, and you hurt your knee, and while you're in the military, you do a lot of running and a lot of exercising and rucksack marches, and you go to sick call quite a bit because of your knee, and now you're 33 years old, and you're having to have a knee replacement. That would probably be a good indication of something that should be service-connected due to aggravation. The last 2 is presumptive and 1151. We've probably all heard of presumptive. This is our Agent Orange, Gulf War veterans, radiation-exposed guys. Basically what it is if you were in the military during a time of service and in a particular location, and you have one of these conditions that is on the presumptive lists that are laid out in 38 CFR, then the VA says it doesn't matter how you got it, doesn't matter if your family has it, as long as you could prove that you were in the place of exposure, the VA will then provide service-connected for that condition, regardless of when it actually came up. And then the last one, which is probably the most difficult and hardest one, is what we call 1151. It basically means any disability or death that is caused by carelessness, negligence, lack of proper skill, error, judgment, or similar instance that's the fault in part of the VA in furnishing hospital care, medical or surgical treatment, or examination, and this extends to VOC Rehab Chapter 31 as well. Basically, it's the VA's fault is the excuse, and you have to prove that. And if it's in fact that case, then the veteran can get service-connected for the injury that the VA caused him based upon these criteria. As I said, it's a pretty difficult one because you have to have a lot of medical evidence for it. But again, if a veteran feels this way and they want to access these benefits, I would encourage them to see one of our veteran service officers. Now, we're done talking about service-connected and anything related to the service. Let's talk about somebody who doesn't have an injury related to service, but maybe has an injury after the service and they might be low income. There's this thing called non-service-connected pension. Basically, a veteran has to be discharged under normal conditions, serving 90 days or more of active service, with at least one during a wartime period. If they served after September 7, 1980, they must have served at least 24 months of continuous service, or entire period called up for our National Guard reserves, and had 1 day during a wartime period. On top of that, they must be permanently and totally disabled from the non-service connected disability and not due to the veteran's own willful misconduct. Or, if not permanently and totally disabled, but are over the age of 65, the VA will waive off the permanently and totally disabled piece. And then the last piece is they must meet the net worth requirements, which is assets, typically $80,000 or less, and do not have an annual countable income in excess of the applicable maximum allowed pension rate. It's actually a pretty great benefit if you are in a situation where you've been injured and you have no resources and you're living month to month with next to no money. This is a benefit that we also call our wartime veterans benefit because of the fact that they have to have 1 day during a wartime period. Now, VA healthcare. Contrary to very popular belief, not all veterans are eligible for VA healthcare. Another common misperception is veteran may only receive care for a service-related condition. Just so you know, eligibility for VA healthcare is based on a variety of factors, including your military service, your type of discharge, whether you got service-connected disabilities. Remember those presumptive conditions? So it's location of service and more. There are a number of exceptions to the rule as well as enhanced eligibility options. So the VA encourages all veterans to apply so they can determine eligibility for each case. And one little plug out there for VA healthcare. You've all probably heard about the VA ID card. That is where you get the VA ID card, by signing up for VA healthcare. Whether you get into the system and use the VA doctor or not, it's great to go out there and apply and get your VA ID card, get on the rolls, because you never know. One day you may need that healthcare. Now, let's talk about the survivors. Say the veteran is passed, and a survivor walks in your door and they want to know what kind of benefits they're eligible for. The first one is dependency indemnity compensation. It's a benefit for qualified dependents based upon a veteran's death as a result of service-connected conditions. It might even be that the veteran was 100% service-connected prior to death. So the dependent can get some money. This is dependent children, spouses, and or parents. This also extends to those veterans who were wartime veterans. So let's say the veteran didn't die of a service-connected death or weren't 100% service-connected for 10 years prior to death, but the widow is really struggling, right? Then there's this program called death pension. It's a benefit for dependents who are in a very bad financial situation and they need benefits based upon their spouse's wartime service. It's a great benefit if you have nothing, but I prefer to access to dependency indemnity compensation, obviously, because the difference is that with DIC, it's about $1,300 a month, where death pension is only about $650. And death pension is an income-based program, just like the wartime pension I told you about for non-service-connected veterans. When it comes to burial benefits, some things you need to know about is that the VA does provide burial benefits to veterans who served on active duty and have an honorable discharge. Benefits for honorably discharged veterans or spouse can include this. A veteran, for instance, can be buried in a national cemetery, including a headstone. And if they're not buried in a national cemetery, they could get a free headstone or marker for those locations, or a free medallion for a headstone in a private cemetery. There is some reimbursement for burial expenses for some cases. The best thing I would do is just have somebody get to a veteran service officer to access those benefits. The other thing you need to know is that spouses can be interned with the veteran at a national cemetery or buried with a veteran at a national cemetery. So that's it. You have now completed Module 2. I hope that you have a little bit better understanding of VA benefits. And as I said in Module 1, it's always good to help your veteran and their loved ones understand these benefits and then direct them to either the state or county veteran service officer to help them apply for those benefits. Now you're ready for Module 3.